By the way, the timing for this class is a little inconvenient now. The sun sets like 15 or 17 minutes after 5. So praying Asr uh, becomes, very marginal. So what about taking a break in the middle of the class?
Yes, sir. Asr Jamaat is at 4:15, sir. So if you can give a
4:50.
break of 10 minutes from 4:10 to 4:20, I think 15 minutes break if you can give in the middle, then
Okay.
we can do a extra class from 5 to 5:15, sir. We can utilize
5:50.
those 15 minutes, sir.
Okay. 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 Sounds good. Then from 4:10, we'll take a 15 minutes break and we'll finish at 5:15. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll go like that. Uh, okay. The problem, let me show you, was we had 128 users with 128 spreading factor, but this spreading factor has been changed for some of them, like one guy with 4, two guys with 16, and one with 32, three with 64. Okay, so if that is the case, like when you change someone to 64, let us work with the highest one first. Then I have, instead of say 128, say I have like 128. Okay. So if I have two people with 128 spreading factor, then these two will come from a cohesive code tree with one node with 64 spreading factor. So meaning that so, so, this 64 level, this 64 level. So in place of two, you can use one guy with 64. Okay, but I had three people with uh, I mean uh, 64. Okay, of course, in the new orientation. So for each of them, I need actually two people with 128 to be replaced. So in place of 6 with 128, I can get 3 with 64. Okay, so I will have, uh, I need to take off 60. Okay, maybe I write down here. I need to subtract subtract 6 and then add 3. Okay, for this first case. Then I have, I forgot to tell you. I have 1 with 32, 2 with 16, and 1 with 4. 1 with 32, 2 with 16, 1 with 4. So 1 with 32, 2 with 16, and 1 with 4. Okay. So from 128 to 32, you know that the factor is like, it's 2 to the power 5, and here it's 2 to the power 7. So uh, 4 times. So there will be, in place of 4, you can get 1. Okay. So you have to, so to, I mean, with 32 is splitting factor, if you want to get someone, you have to sacrifice 4 with 128. Okay? So subtract 4 and add 1, because the factor, multiplying factor is 4 between 32 and 128. Similarly for 16, it is 8. So 8 users you need to sacrifice from 128 to get someone with 16. And there are 2 such people. So 2 into 8. Okay. So 16 people you need to sacrifice, and you can get 2 people instead with 16 same factor. Then with 4, the splitting factor is 32. Okay. So you need to sacrifice 32 people to get just one guy. And from 128, you have to do this change. Okay. 128. Okay, previously had 128. Then so after this changes, the new number will probably be 77. Okay, as I remember. You can check again. So that's the answer. Questions? Do you have any questions? Okay. If I ask you to calculate data rate for any of them, you should be able to do that. I mean, there is already an example calculation in the class note. I mean, it's very simple. Very simple. Yeah. And we actually also, I think, did a sample calculation in the class. So I think we can begin our formal discussion for today. We discussed hierarchy operation, which is performed at MAC layer. And this hierarchy has basically 2 types. The first is called chase combining. The second one is incremental redundancy. And the second type is used nowadays. What happened? You will be sending different versions for soft combination with older ones. That's the technique for HRQ. If all these different versions are the same, you just send new, same type of new packets. Okay? The same packet you keep retransmitting. It's called chase combining. And in this case, what happens that you just feel like the outcome, okay, it's like you get better SINR, okay, as if you have got better SINR when you try to combine with the older ones, okay. So if you have more retransmissions of the same type, as you have I mean you have got better, you are working at the receiving side with better SINR conditions, okay, with more retransmitted blocks. But normally you need to use the same code rate. We probably remember what code rate is. In the when you use coding, you have to use some type of code rate. Okay, say half or one third or whatever. Okay, depending on your there's the ratio of actual bits and the total number of bits. But in the case of incremental redundancy, the coding techniques is better used. I mean, it's more technically used. The coding technique generates different versions for retransmissions. Like more smartly, it does that. When you when your first version is not correctly decoded, some bits are, you know, incorrectly detected, then the second version is not alike, little bit different. Okay, and this difference comes from coding. And it also depends on your coding technique, what type of coding technique you are using, what strength of coding level, okay, you have. Depending on that, you send little different version. And the coding technique, the coding is a complex technique. The decoding technique at the receiving end will incorporate its complexity, its inherent complexity, to resolve the two different packets and find out the best possible one. Try to retrieve the what the actual packet content should have. Okay. So it is more complicated but smarter, with two different versions, and the different versions are created because of the coding. Okay. Because of the complexity of the coding, or the inherent strength of the coding. Similarly, the third version will also be a little different. Fourth version will also be different. So you actually generate four different versions for original transmission and retransmission. But you need to keep in mind that the additional versions are sent only when you fail to retrieve the actual packet from whatever versions you have already worked with. Okay, maybe you are successful in the first attempt. If not in the second attempt, with the two little different versions, you soft combine, and probably you can recover the actual packet. Okay. So some bits are incorrect for both versions, which are little different, but with a soft combination of whatever you have, uh, probably the decoding technique with its inherent strength will probably be able to recover. So this is what people now use, incremental. It's called incremental redundancy. So you have okay, four different versions are created, and these are called redundancy versions. The first version, RV0, RV0 is used for original transmission, and other versions are used for retransmissions. But it's not always like, you use the RV1 for the first retransmission, RV2 for the second, RV3 for the last. Typically, they are like this. They have this sort of sequence. Okay. The transport block is generated with four different versions, with four redundancy versions. Or you may not generate them in the beginning, but later you generate. But actually, it's like generation in the beginning. Okay, you will have the same type of versions. The coding technique will generate four different versions. Uh, but the order is typically like the first retransmission is RV1, RV2, and then RV3. But that also depends on the uh, sometimes it's a choice. The uh, transmitting side can decide which may be the best for this current radio link condition. Okay. Uh, I mean, it may adjust the radio condition and decide, okay, which version may better suit. Okay, maybe in the first retransmission it uses RV2. Okay. So, but typically uh, the same order you have is used for the three different retransmissions. Anyway, the rest of this discussion we actually did last time. So a couple of slides I just added. Now, for this, I mentioned it before, but I don't have a slide on that. That you have two separate states in control from RRC. RRC is the major control from the control layer from the E node B, and also from the U side. And this RC on the two sides have two different states. If you have some data session up, then it is RC connected state. You first need to get the two RC of the UE and RC of the E node be connected. Connected means they can exchange messages. And then you establish some data session, okay, for voice call or for web browsing, FTP transfer, whatever. Okay, once you have the sessions complete, you terminate the session, and then you also disconnect the connection between RC layers. They no longer need to remain connected. So this then you then go back to RC idle stage. These slides we discussed, and this slide I mentioned before, but I didn't have a slide on that. I just added that the new radio resources are allocated, as we have already seen, in every subframe. Right, in the beginning of the subframe, you have some control region, some PDCCH, where you include the resource allocation information for that subframe, so which is 1 millisecond long. So, and it includes 2 slots. So in the next subframe, you again include the resource allocation information. So you, allocate resources in every one subframe. This interval is called TTI, transmission time interval. How often you allocate new resources? So you have the decision how the resources will be allocated for the current slot. Okay, uh, is actually renewed in every 1 millisecond, and this is called TTI. Okay, this TTI was longer before, like in UMTS, it was 10 millisecond at the minimum. Okay, and it could be as high as 80 millisecond. In HSDPA, it was reduced to 2 millisecond, and in LT it is, and it will be even shorter in 5G, in the 6G, or in future, it will be even shorter. So the shorter your TTI is, the more frequently you can adapt to whatever changes you have in the environment. Like your radio link conditions may change. So accordingly, some people, you may want to keep more resources than others. So all these decisions you can uh, adjust more frequently as you have shorter TTI. Also, there will be some differences in the load demand. Okay, variation of load demand in time. So you can adapt to all these sort of changes, okay, or better tuned to all type of requirements, okay, as you have. But of course, the technology has to support how often you should do that. Okay, and this part we already covered, that we don't have circuit switching in LT, and the some applications actually better suit to circuit switching properties. For them, something called same person scheduling is used, where you don't need the overhead, don't need to spend the overhead for uh, okay, for the type of payloads. Payloads mean the data you allocate, okay, which are small. Okay, I mean at regular intervals you need some small amount of resources. So it's like periodic. You need some payloads, and it is predictable. You know that you will have them. So for this type of applications, why bother spending overhead for every payload allocation, scheduling a payload? So that overhead will cause, uh, I mean, may outweigh your actual data. So in circuit switching, you don't need that. You just, in the beginning of your data session, you allocate all the resources. So semi-person scheduling uh, fulfills, circumvent that problem. Okay, you just allocate resource once, and the scheduling information, the PDCCH packet, okay, will specify that at this resource blocks location, at these frequencies, at these intervals, you will get this many resource blocks allocated for either downlink or uplink. It may allocate. Okay, and also the uh, modulation and coding scheme. It specifies that this will be used. Okay. So, and until you change, until you give a new decision, keep using that. Okay. So it's like CS. You don't need to use control overhead every time for the allocation. Until you deactivate the allocation or you bring about any changes, you just keep using that allocation information. So, but the normal allocation, when you use the PDCCH uh, for every allocation, in every subframe, then that is called dynamic schedule. So for safety CTRs or FTP transfer to web browsing, for this type of application, dynamic scheduling is more suitable. But primarily VoIP, voice, okay, or some video in uh, okay, live video can have same percent scheduling. VIP is definitely always suitable with same percent scheduling.
Sir,
Yeah.
if you could give the prayer break now, sir.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. So let us have a 10 minutes break, 15 minutes break. Jazakallah. But I keep the session up. Okay. Maybe I stop the recording for now. Pause. I pause this recording.